All right, so hello, I am Tab. Wow. Welcome to my little book corner, my little book club, my book nook. Yeah. But yeah, so if anybody who's previously been here on the channel already, not a lot of people, I'm sure, has realized that I have decided to delve into yet another revamp, new lane in the channel. And the reason, and I'm not even gonna spend too much time on this, but the reason I wanted to kind of do this is because I felt like I wanted to do something where I could actually enjoy, like fully enjoy doing it, like, especially, when it comes to books. I enjoy reading books, and I wanted to be able to figure out a way to like also enjoy this process of content creation while I'm doing it, and not feel like the content creation is taking too much away from the enjoyment of whatever it is that I'm putting on this channel. So here I am doing this. And so I thought, what better way to kick off the channel than starting with a video talking about my journey on falling back in love with books again, right? So yeah, without further ado, I first started reading books. I mean, hell, my folks been reading me books since I was a baby, and from as far as I can remember, I've been reading books. When I was a child, I used to have like a whole little bookshelf nightstand right next to my bed filled with books. It was only like I only had like 2 levels, but I filled them bitches up, okay? And I mean, I'm talking like, I used to be in elementary school reading thick ass books. I mean, I'm talking like thick books, thick, okay? That is ass.
Oh yes.
But yeah, and I just love it. I especially loved, I remember like things like fantasy and mystery. I really love those kind of things. And I wish I had the books here to show y'all, but I used to love things like, one of them that I can remember specifically was like the R.L. Stein books, I believe. And what was the other ones? I can't remember right now. But yeah, it started off with that, and I was reading for years. I just love burying myself in the book. And then I want to say somewhere like in middle school, I don't know at what point in middle school, but at a certain point in middle school, I just stopped reading. And it's not like it was on purpose. I just kind of lost my passion for it. And I think it might have something to do with the fact that I was getting older and I was getting a lot more interested in like the online world. Not to say that I wasn't already using computers at this point. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it was because I got my first touchscreen iPod. I don't know what it was that kind of just, transitioned me out of reading books to now just being online and, talking to friends and things like that. And I just no longer wanted to read anymore, and that was how many years ago? That was probably somewhere around the age of, I want to say like 12 maybe. So this happened over a decade ago. Yeah, maybe like, I don't know, 12 years ago, 13, something like that, right? A long time ago. And so for a long time in my life, I didn't read books. And somewhere along the way, not only did I stop reading books, my attention span got fucked up. I could no longer and honestly, I think it's maybe when I transitioned into adulthood that shit really became prominent. Because, in school, they still had us reading books. But I think I'll say somewhere in my later teenage years is when the attention span started getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And at least when it came to books, because I feel like my attention span's always been a little wonky, from the jump. By wonky, I mean short. It's always been a little short from the jump, but I could actually stay a little more focused back in the day when it came to books and just life in general, right? But as I got older, it shortened. And I remember at some point, I got to a point in my life where I'm like, man, I can't even concentrate. I can't even read a fucking page of a book if I wanted to, because my ass will get so distracted so quick, even if I wanted to. And I knew that was dead ass because of the fact that I would often get distracted reading maybe something simple on the internet, and that's when I knew it was a problem. And so at this point, I still had no really desire to read books again, but I did have a desire. And at this point, I guess fast forward a little bit, when I was, I think when I was 21, I'll say, yeah, I was 21. When I was 21, I kind of started getting this desire to kind of lengthen up my attention span again, because I felt like it just got to a point where it's like, man, I can't. And I feel like I had already started doing some small things, right? But I kind of did, but not on purpose, But I think when I was 21, that's when it started to become intentional, me intentionally wanting to lengthen up my attention span. And at some point during that year, also just like, I think I want to start reading books again, but I don't know how I'm going to do that. So now I had to embark onto a new task of like, okay, how do I rebuild my attention span? And how do I even regain a love of books again? You know what I'm saying? Because I don't even like reading books no more. And I'll say that it started, I decided to make a plan for myself, right? And I'm like, okay, like what can we do to get ourselves from where we're at now to over here where I could full on read, you know, thick books and enjoy it and actually stay focused. And so I think I read some blog posts here and there. It wasn't really consistent, I'll say, right? Picked up, I think, like my first book. I don't even say my first book, but because I know that like the year prior, I had tried to pick up a book. Actually, I forgot about that. I tried to pick up a book, read like a page, got bored, put it down. Okay. And so there was like this little level of trying throughout, you know, my adulthood where I would try a little bit and then just, it completely just went down the drain, right? And then that year, I remember I picked up a book again. And this time around, I picked up a book of poetry. It was actually an acquaintance of mine at the time. It was her book of poetry. And I was sitting in her room. She was moving out. She was actually my housemate. We lived in the same house. Housemate, roommate, whatever you want to call it. She was moving out. And I went and sat in the room with her. And me and my ex, who was my partner at the time, we were both, you know, in her room. And she was going through all her stuff. And she had like a bunch of shit. She was like, you know, asking like, okay, what do we want? Like, because she's trying to get rid of a bunch of stuff. And she had a bunch of books. And, you know, she said, hey, like, you know, do y'all want any of these books, right? And then I saw one book and I'm like, it was a book of poetry. It was real thin, probably like this thick. And I was like, and she went ahead and gave it to me. So, you know what? Yeah, fuck it. Let me read it. And I picked it up and I started reading it little by little. And not only did I read it, I kind of started I grabbed a Sharpie and I put little hearts on the poems that I really felt like resonated with me. And that was like the only book I read that year, but it was a start. Right. And that was when I was 21, you know. Fast forward a little bit to now, from that point to 22, you know, I definitely started getting a little more serious about it, where it's like, okay, like we need to do something with this. Right. And so I decided, like, you know what, I'm going to start listening to podcasts. I felt like that was like, okay, the next level. Let's like actually do something, you know, more action. And so I started listening to podcasts, and I'm not going to lie, that helped, you know. And yeah, I wasn't reading anything, but getting used to just hearing somebody talk without like any, you know, external crazy extra thing going on, just people talking, right? And I listen to more than one podcast, but I will definitely say the podcast audio forced me to continue to pay attention and focus without the visual stimuli, you know. Yeah, after that, I remember I started listening to audio shows, which might seem like a step down because there's a lot of, you know, like noises and stuff that go on in the background of audio shows to really get you immersed in it. But this actually also helped, you know. What it forced me to do was use my imagination, which is another really important component when it comes to reading, is especially depending on what genre you're reading and what's not, is getting those juices flowing. Something that I hadn't really, I feel like, done in quite some time. And so the combination of these two things is what I was doing for a while. Then fast forward 23. I got to 23, and 23 is actually last year. So 2024, right? 2024 is the year that I really started to read books. And yes, we're in 2025, so this was rather recent, right? In the past year. Hell, it's been less than a year since I've actually been reading books, okay? And so also, I almost forgot to say, when I was 22, I almost skipped over this part. So we got the podcast, right? The audio podcast I'm listening to in combination with the audio shows, right? And then the next thing I did after that, the next layer, I started to write. I started to write my own poetry. This was kind of like a spur of the moment. It just happened one night. I started to write my own poetry and read others' poetry as well on Instagram. So I started writing my own poetry, and I would just write like little, very short think pieces. And this was definitely another layer now, you know, like it's like an onion peeling back layers, right? And I made a whole account for it. You know, I got it tagged in my YouTube channel if y'all want to check that out. I don't post on there as often. I do try to post my poems. I still got a lot of poems in the vault that I got to post, you know. But I started to write my own poetry. And so now I'm combining more and more things. So now I'm getting used to making my own written word and just getting my thoughts out onto a paper, you know. And then, you know, come 23. So yeah, come 2024, I was still doing that a little bit, you know, but I will say started to shorten up on the poetry and just started to, and I continue to just do like the podcast and audio shows. And I would say mid 2024 is when I was drinking some miso soup. I'm still not done. It's probably getting cold. But yeah, mid 2024 rolls around. And at this point, I basically been training my brain with these, 3 different things, right? And so that's when, I got the first book out of, not my first book ever reading as an adult, but the first book that led to me consistently reading books again. And that book is But I Don't Feel Empowered by Suri Chan. And I'm gonna keep giving this goddamn book some credit. Suri she also writes poetry and she posts it on Instagram and stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I really loved her written word. And when I saw she was coming out with a book of poetry, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely trying to get that. I think this is a great starter into my continual, reading journey, re-embarking it. And this it really did reignite my passion for reading, and I did the same thing I did with that old poetry book. I put hearts on, the pages that I loved. And on top of that, she's got like, actual like pictures in her poetry book and stuff. So I really love that, because she also does that on her Instagram. And man, I feel like a match, when you strike the matches on the box, like this right here, the strike on the match on the box matches. This is what I felt like. This is what I felt like happened. This is exactly what I felt like happened. Like I just got ignited immediately, when I read that goddamn poetry book. And this happened not even that long ago, so I'm still like, it still feels so fresh, although I'm snuffing out this match, that doesn't mean my passion's getting snuffed out. I just had to snuff it out because it is a fire. Okay. But actually all over the place. I'm gonna make a whole entire video on all the books I read in the past year. And honestly, it hasn't even been a year since I started reading. It's been probably like maybe 8 months? Maybe 8 months, maybe less. I don't know. Maybe more. I don't know. Something like that. You can see it's not a super thick book, It's nothing crazy. It's definitely thicker than the last poetry book. And that definitely gave me a little more hope into my attention span. And I also noticed my attention span was getting better. I could really sit here in one sitting and just read a lot more than I could before. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say like I was reading a lot. I had to take breaks in between, After this, I got a bigger book, thicker book. And not every single book I've gone after that has been getting thicker and thicker and thicker. Some of them have. Not every single one though. But what has happened is that with every single book that I read, I was able to sit here and read longer, without getting the urge to pick up my phone or some shit, to pick up the phone or fiddle with my fingers or some shit, with every single book. Till fast forward, here I am now, 2025. I feel proud of where I've gotten now. Granted, I'm not reading again, and the reason I say I haven't gotten all the way there yet is because I feel like I will come full circle to where I was when I was a child once I've actually hit that caliber of reading, which is so crazy to say. Like fucking 8-year-old me was reading more than now and better than me now. But in the sense of being able to actually get a book like this thick and read it through, I know that I will have come full circle. And it's not always just the thickness of the books. You know what I'm saying? It's about the content inside. That's what really matters, And I feel like every book I picked up has great content in it, and that's what's important. How I fell back in love with books, with reading again, was very intentional. I wanted to do this, and it was a slow grind, a slow pace, as you can see, literally years. Quite literally years. I'm not gonna say it's gonna take everybody years to actually be able to regrow their attention span, but it does take time to regrow your attention span, because every day we're on these screens, we're looking at these computers, we're looking at these TVs, we're looking at our phones. It shortens it up and it fucks us up. And I'm not gonna lie, even lately, I haven't been able to buy a new book yet, and I've been on the goddamn phone, goddamn blown lately, and it's been fucking me. Oh, don't beat yourself up if you can't sit here and pick up a fucking 500-page book and read it all in one fucking night. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just enjoy the journey of being able to get to a point where you can actually sit and be present. I think that's what's really important. Can you be present with this literature that you're holding right now? That was my journey. Y'all stay tuned. I'm gonna come out with a full video. Next video gonna be a video on all the books I read. I'll give kind of a short little summary on every single book that I read in this past year. I know we already way past January. When this video comes out, it's either gonna be February or March, so we already gonna be past January. But I still want to share that with you. These are good books regardless. Timeless, you know what I'm saying? And it's different genres. You're gonna be girls all over the place. What are you into? I like different genres. The light went out. Okay. I will see you on the next one.